Welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, I'm William Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Element and the host of the Up Arrow Podcast, where I feature the best minds in e-commerce to help you scale from 10 million to 100 million and beyond as you up arrow your business and your personal life. Today's guest is one of the sharpest minds in modern retail. Someone who doesn't just follow fashion trends, but actually translates them into strategy. Carly Chenault is the founder of Market Edit, a media and advisory firm guiding fashion startups and emerging brands through the sifting sands of culture, commerce, and consumer behavior. She's also the creator of Retail Roundtable, a must-read newsletter for anyone who wants to understand what's really happening behind the velvet curtain of the fashion business. If you've ever wondered what's happening in retail before it hits the headlines, odds are Carly's already written about it with clarity, context, and a whole lot of wit. What makes her perspective so unique is that she's seen fashion from every angle, from the storied halls of Barney's to the chaotic trenches of early-stage startups, all the way to the advisory rooms where today's founders are trying to decode what's next. She's one part strategist, one part cultural translator, and one part hype-free truth teller. And today, we're going deep into brand building, the state of retail, and why most companies miss the real signs that tell them what customers want. Whether you're scaling a D2C brand or just trying to make sense of this new era of commerce, this episode is going to give you the clarity you didn't know you needed. Carly, welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much. It was such an intro.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you here. You've posted stuff on LinkedIn, and I was like, oh, I like what she's saying. I don't think we had anybody necessarily even in common connection that I know of. I just reached out and I was like, I want you on the podcast. You're saying some unique stuff, and I think this would be really good for our audience. So thank you for joining me.
Of course. That post ended up being a little spicy. I ended up
good.
kind of falling off of it because it got a little crazy unintentionally. But like you said, kind of part of the brand, just kind of being a true teller, saying exactly what's on my mind, and open to having conversations around what that looks like. And sometimes it goes well, and sometimes people get a little spicy, but I'm glad that it made its way to you.
No, that's good. I want to get into the good stuff. Before we do, I'm going to announce our sponsor real quick. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, we've helped 13 of our customers get acquired, with the largest one selling for nearly $800 million and one that IPO'd. You can learn more on our website at element.com, which is spelled ELUMYNT.com. That said, as we get started, I want to talk about your journey and what drew you to fashion originally.
Yeah, I, for some reason, was always super interested in fashion from a very young age. And my mom would tell me that she would drop me off at school when I was like in pre-K. She worked at a pre-K. I'd go when I was like 2, 3, 4 years old. And she would put me in collared shirts and I would tuck them in. And to this day, nice. I don't like collared shirts. They're not for me. That has stuck with me since I was like 3 years old. Or if you're a 90s baby, you'll remember these big frilly socks, not the cute ones we have now. And I used to tuck them 100%. In. I used to pull them down because I was an ankle sock girl. And again, I'm not a crew sock girl to this day. I'm still an ankle sock girl. So some things have really stuck with me. But I just always was really into, I think, more so like aesthetics. I loved looking at well-designed houses. I loved looking through magazines and seeing editorials. I would spend so much time after school when I was like in high school, looking at sites like Urban Outfitters and just seeing how they styled pieces and put them together. And it really, I think, to me, just kind of made me feel like there was another world out there. And how were people living? And what did these clothes say about them? And when people designed sets, what world was I transported to? And that always really drew me in. And so I knew from a really young age I wanted to be involved in fashion somehow. I wasn't sure exactly what that looked like, and I really didn't know a lot about the industry. And I ended up moving to New York. And I think at the time, the big role, and I still think is one of the coolest roles, was being a buyer. And that didn't end up working out for me. And I think it took me a while to really figure out my place in fashion. And I think there's so many more opportunities now as time has gone on. But yeah, happy to get more granular on anything.
Well, you glossed over this part, which I liked. Your reason for moving to New York, you were in Miami, and I understand there was like this pivotal moment that you're like, yeah, I can't be here. I need to move to New York.
Yeah, what's really funny, as I have gotten older, I've met so many people who are from really small towns, my husband included. And I think I thought growing up, and I was outside of Miami, I knew that I
Okay.
was in a bigger market because I had a lot of family in a really small town in Maine that my parents still go to often. And I would notice when we would go there for the summer, like, oh, they'd put something on the radio. And I was like, I heard that song 3 months ago. So I was very much aware that there was a lot going on where I was from, but I was still deep in the suburbs. And something about city life was so enticing to me. And yeah, the moment you're talking about is I was at, I believe it was my prom, my senior year. And a lot of times, again, growing up in South Florida, a lot of times our homecoming and our prom would be down by the beach in hotels. And I went to a pretty large school, so I know a lot of people like their proms and homecomings are like at their school. I had thousands of kids just in my grade. And so we would go down to a hotel by the beach, and then I remember we would get like a hotel or something afterwards, and that's where everyone would hang out and party. And we went back to this one that was pretty deep in the suburbs where I lived. And I remember I was in a Betsy Johnson dress. I had begged my parents, like, please, for my senior year, let me get a Betsy Johnson dress. She was my everything. And I got this dress, and it was like my first like designer piece, if you will. So excited about it. And I just remember getting to that hotel, and I don't want to sound like a brat here by any means, but just
Sure.
looking around and feeling like it was very suburban and being like, I just want to be in New York. There's got to be more than this suburb. And I say that as I'm from a very nice place. I mean, no offense. I just knew that I want to live in the city, and I want to live in New York. And I'd only been at that point one time. I ended up going my junior year. I got to go for my grad present. My parents took me for like a week. And the next time I went to New York, I moved.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was
So
quick.
you had visited at least one time. Now, early on in your career, if I remember correctly, you were at Condé Nast and you got to ride in an elevator with Anna Wintour. Tell me a little
I
bit
did
about like,
not.
oh, who was it then?
Well, it was Anna Wintour, but I did not get in the elevator because if you're like a
Oh,
OG lore fashion girl, there was all these rumors back in the day that like, Anna wore these sunglasses and you didn't talk to her and you'd like to look at her and like this whole thing around who she was.
sure.
And so if you were a Condé Nast girl in the 2010s, a lot of them are out there. They are semi-traumatized.
Sure.
All you did all day was usually run around if you were a fashion closet girl, run around to all the different PR agencies or to different design, just like headquarters, and you would be grabbing bags and all the polls that they would do to get things ready for the editorials that they were shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was the middle of summer, you're so hot, you're like both sides, just like 20 pounds of these bags. And the old Condé Nast building was near Times Square. And so the way the building
Okay.
worked was there was a main entrance on the front side. And then if you walked through the front, it was just a hallway until you got to the same exit on the other side. And there was elevators on both sides. I remember it was so hot. I had been out for like hours and I had probably like 30 pounds, I am not exaggerating, of garment bags with me. And my arms were falling off and I just wanted to get upstairs and drop them and sit for a second. And I
Yeah.
get to the elevator, there's no one there. I push it. I'm so excited. I'm like, I'm going to get in here quickly. And then Anna Wintour walked through the other side, like the back.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like double opens
And
kind of thing.
yeah, and I was just looking at her and it was just the two of us and I'd already hit the elevator and the elevator opened and no one was on it and she just walked in and we just looked at each other just like dead stare and I was like, yeah, I can't get in here. Like I can't get in this elevator. Like, there was this rule that like you weren't allowed to, and I don't know if that's true to this day or not. But also like how scary. I was like, 19 or 20. I wouldn't have gotten like in an elevator with Anna Wintour on my own, then gotten off of my exit and been like, see ya, have a great day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
It's like a Cruella de Vil. I wonder if she knew like how much people felt that way about her, but like I wonder if she was actually like a sweetheart though too, and she just laughed whenever somebody wouldn't get on the elevator. She's like, oh, there's another one who believes that.
I think that often, like I kind of was looking at her and I'm like, does she think this is funny? Like, does she think like,
Right.
oh, like this is gonna be good for her. This is good lore for her. Like she'll remember this story. But yeah, that was one of my early days too. That was the fun thing about being in New York though, was that you saw people all the time, even like the people that they were shooting at Condé Nast or when I was working at Intermix or I was working at Barney's. And it was just really cool, I think, at that point to see how people interacted with fashion and all the kind of the behind the scenes players. That's what's always intrigued me. Like I remember I was at brunch one time and I saw Grace Coddington, who was
Oh,
one of the big shooters for, or the shooter for Vogue, and is so legendary as a photographer. And just seeing those people who have such an impact on the industry but maybe aren't like as forward facing, especially back then, like before social media was really so big, and you kind of had to know people or just know of people, like do your research, not that I knew them. Was really interesting to be able to see those people and understand like really the industry at that time and everyone who kind of built it into what it was.
I want to shift into growth and scaling and breaking through plateaus a little bit. You've worked with brands of every size, from VC-backed, massive, scrappy. What causes them to plateau in your mind?
It's a good question. And I think there's quite a few answers, and it depends on exactly where the brand is at. I think one of the most common things I've seen a lot, maybe more in my startup days, is leadership. I think that oftentimes there are leaders who don't know when it's time for them to pivot out of their role, and not be sitting on top of every department so heavily and making good hires that can help them really be strategic and move forward. I think that can be a really scary thing, which I understand, especially if you're in the startup world, you're a founder. You've built this into what it is. You've taken on money. You feel like you have a lot of pressure, not just for yourself to succeed, but to, not let people down who have invested in your business or you have employees. And I think that oftentimes it can be hard for them to understand when to pull away, and what to pull away on. And I think if you don't understand yourself as a founder and you understand where your strengths are and you get lost in your business and you just become the entirety of the business, I think it's going to be really hard for you to transition out and say, these are my strengths, this is where I should stay, and here's where I need to hire out and where I need to start delegating. I also think a lot of people think they're delegating and they're not. They are micromanaging. I think that can be really difficult. So I think being able to, one, be self-aware, be honest about what's going on in your business, and be able to really take in criticism from your team constructively, I think are really big sticking points. I think another one also depends on where you're at in your brand, but not understanding your customer to an extent that you can't market to them properly at all. And I think a lot of us have seen this as consumers, where you follow a brand and then you're like, what choice did they just make? Or how did they move so far away from me? Like, I'm still buying from them. I don't understand how we got here. And I think that probably comes down to leadership again, too, and not understanding or letting your teams do what they need to do and being a roadblock. But I think those two, and happy again to get more granular anywhere, for me, are what I've seen in my experience with brands. I think people forget who their consumer is often, and it makes it really hard to scale that to that same person and to talk to them on multiple fronts.
Well, I think a lot of times founders start off as being their ideal customer, right? They solve the problem that they felt, but by the time you've reached 10 million, 25 million, you're likely not the same person as the person who originally had the problem that you're solving. And so your mindset is maybe not as relevant as it used to be into your understanding of who those customers are. And so you have to start doing better customer research versus relying on your own, let's just say, intuition. Intuition is good. You need to still rely on that. I don't want to take that away from founders. Founders have good intuition, but you have to start using some data and some inputs from outside sources too.
Yeah, two things I want to say to that. Something you'll hear me say all the time, whether it's on LinkedIn or if you know me in real life, and I talk about on the newsletter a lot, is to solve the problems for the world in which you live. Because I find, compared to what you said, they might have been their ideal consumer starting off. I think a lot of founders are so deep in their own world that they'll start imagining that the world already exists, as if their problem is solved, or as if everybody already cares about solving that problem with them.
Sure.
And so they will start looking at finding solutions for things in that dream world that doesn't exist yet, and forget that they're still bridging the gap to that world all the time. And I hope that makes sense the way I'm explaining it. But I see it a lot with people who work in sustainability, is that their whole world can become about sustainability. And so then they start solving problems as if everyone cares about sustainability still. And it's like, we're not there, right? Like, you still have to solve the problem for the world in which you live. And then the second thing is that I listened to a great podcast the other day. It was a business and fashion podcast, but it was with Emily Oberg of Sporty and Rich. And I think she was a really great example. I think people should listen to it if they're struggling with knowing when to step out of their business, or not out of their business, but, really function as a CEO versus being the head of marketing as a founder. And she talks pretty early on, and she was really lucky to have a partner and a co-founder who had his own brand already. And so he had a team at their disposal to help with sales, operations, logistics. But she knew from an early on point that she was really great at brand building and marketing and the visuals. And she let that team run with it. She didn't try and get in there and overrun a team that already existed. She really focused on what she was good at. So not everyone has that privilege, right? To start a brand and have 50 people on the side working for you. But she is a great example of knowing from the beginning, I'm not good at operations, so I'm not going to sit here and micromanage my operations team when they're functioning the way they should. And so I think if you can't trust the team that you're with, you have to decide, is it because of them, the reason that you feel like you need to micromanage, or is it because you're not trusting yourself to hire the right people or to make the right decisions, and being honest with yourself about what that looks like. And again, finding out what it is that you're good at that point.
I remember when we implemented EOS Traction, which is Entrepreneur Operating System. It's a really good foundation framework for a lot of startups to work around. When we implemented that at Element, at the agency, one of the things that you start doing is you talk about, are they, GWC, do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity, right? You might want to do it. You might get the concept of what it is, but like, do you have the capacity to actually do it? And that might be a no. It's really interesting because, you put your name in the seat. First, you put down like not all like the titles and the positions, but it's like, what is the function that needs to happen? And you write those all down, and then you start putting names in those. And you look at it and you say, okay, and you vote as a leadership team, right? It's like, does William Harris have the ability to actually do that, right? Do you think he does? And it's funny because there were things that I'm like, yeah, I'm actually really good at this. But when they talk about the capacity, it's like, but you don't have the capacity, right? And so like the team would be like, nope, raising my hand saying, no, he does not have the capacity to do this. Because of whatever reason. It's like, well, we actually need you to be the CEO now. We have other things that we need you to do. There are other people who can do those things. And I remember that being like a really interesting thing as a CEO, new CEO, trying to work through this, giving up some of those things that you actually might be good at, that you like doing, you want to do, you just don't have the capacity to do them anymore.
That's a really great point. I'm dealing with that kind of on my own as I'm building out, my newsletter and trying to iterate on what the next version of that looks like. A lot of that is, what does the actual community building look like, and what are the platforms I need to be on? And one of them has been like, I need to really start social for this newsletter. And it's like, of course I know how to do that. I've spent my life in marketing. I understand social, I understand these things, but I don't have the time right now to do it properly. I don't have the time to create content and create visual. That's actually something I'm not good at. So I've known that. I'm very aware of it. But to do that on top of everything else I'm doing, if I tried it right now, something would fail, right? So I need to either wait until I have everything else really up and running to a place where the systems are good and I'm able to execute on it quickly at the same level that I started at. So my quality stays up while I get faster at doing it and become more efficient. And then I can add on the next piece. Or I've already looked at taking on an intern or a small hire come the fall and planning for what that looks like and what that's going to cost my business. And it doesn't have to happen right now, right? But knowing that it does need to happen eventually for me to grow again. And so if I need to outsource that, because I do have, like you said, the knowledge, so I can help kind of guide somebody, but I don't have the capacity right now. So I need to be able to give that to somebody else. And it's not a reflection of me not being good at something. Just because you aren't doing something in your business anymore doesn't mean that you're not good at it. It just means you can't be doing it anymore. There's other more important things for you to do. You could be good at X, Y, and Z, but X may take up 80% of your time and also give you the most results in your business. And you need to lean into doing more of that often.
Something you wrote that I really appreciated was that you said brand, reputation, and money don't guarantee scale. Why is innovation, do you think, so hard after traction? So you get that traction and then stop.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that I think it may be easy to feel like you've had some wins, maybe if you've innovated early, got some traction, then you feel like, well, I did it, right? So I just need to keep doing it. I need to keep repeating that. And I think that it's easy to also lose sight, like I was saying, of your customer and your community if you're building. I think it's really, and I'm talking about from a startup phase, but I can talk about it from a larger scale as well. If you're in a startup, I'm kind of dealing with this right now too, is like I'm trying to maintain my engine while knowing that I want to really iterate on like what the next version of the brand that I'm building is, right? And so trying to keep your business alive while building the next phase is very difficult because you're in two different headspaces. You have a lot of work to do. And I think that something's going to fall, right? Like something's going to happen. When I'm talking about, brand reputation and money don't guarantee success, I think innovating when you're at a large company, like when I was at Barney's, it becomes really difficult too, because you're such a heritage brand and people know you for one thing, but you can't get stale. You have to find ways to, are you bringing in new brands? Are you doing the next collab?
Sure.
And every decision you make when you're at a really high level is scrutinized because there's so much to compare it back to. If you're a newer brand and you're making new decisions, it can constantly just feel like, oh, new part of the brand. Oh, I'm unlocking something new. Oh, here's their next version. But if you're a brand that's been around for 50, 100, whatever years, everything you do is going to be compared to what you did previously. And even if you did really great, if it didn't align with something that you did that was absolutely killer 10 years ago that people are still talking about, it's difficult. And, I worked at Barney's during the time where they were really open about struggling with money before they shut down. And they were really open and honest about it, which I appreciated as a brand. But there was just so many missteps that happened on multiple fronts. There was a lot of brand reputation pieces that missed that I won't get into. There was money being spent on things that maybe they didn't need to. Ultimately, their demise, a lot of it was out of their control at the end. But there was things that led up to it that didn't put them in a good place to be able to negotiate or just have any sort of standing to make better decisions. And so I think innovating at a high level becomes really difficult to kind of constantly compare to, and to also like stay on brand and to try new things where you're trying to connect with a new customer, right? Like your customer base is going to be changing. People are going to be meeting when they're younger, getting older. You're trying to do new things to stay up to date with them. You're trying to stay up to date with marketing trends. You're trying it all. And having to really not try much at all. That's really difficult. And then, like I said, for startups, I think things can drop, or I know we want to talk about in startups, and this might be a hot take, that you have to fail and you have to take risks, and you have to do things. But at the end of the day, I do think as a startup, you only have X amount of chances to fail at something. And you're not failing properly if you're failing so often that you never learn from it and you're just continuing to make mistakes over and over again. Again, there's going to be things that are out of your control. There's going to be things that are really difficult to deal with, the economy or other things might happen. But I think, you only have so many times to learn from your mistakes before you have to get better. Money runs out, people leave.
So how do we fail better? Like, I like that you're like, hey, if you're not failing the right way, like, how do we fail the right way?
Yeah, I know. That's kind of a mean thing to say, right? Is that like you have
to
fail?
No, it's a really accurate thing to say.
I'm not even failing good enough.
There's a lot. You're failing at failing.
Yeah.
But I see this in the ad space, right? So I'll at least jump from that for a second. We see this all the times where brands will come to us and they're like, our Meta ads aren't working, our Google ads aren't working, TikTok ads, whatever. And, we look through their account and we see, it's like, well, what kind of testing have you guys done? Well, I don't know. We've tested a whole bunch of things, though. It's like, okay, but there's no structure to anything that you've tested. I can't actually even see what has or hasn't been tested from a naming convention standpoint, from the way things were or weren't systematically done. And then the reality is, like, you as the brand owner, you have no idea. Let's say that you did run a well-structured test, but there's no real good recap on what did or didn't work and what the learning was from it. Then you haven't tested anything because you have no knowledge from that. It's almost as if the test didn't exist.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm saying is, if things are allowed to fail, right? They fail for all sorts of reasons. And I think, again, working in marketing, I see this a lot as you can do everything technically right, or that everyone in the industry is saying to do and what's working. And things just don't work out sometimes. Like something pops up in the world and people didn't listen to what you guys were doing that week because something crazy happened, or you went to go spend money on something and something else happened that took away from your ads and now your ads didn't get in front of anybody. A million things could happen, right? You could partner with a celeb or an influencer and the week that it comes out, they get canceled. There's a million things that could happen last minute. That's fine. And it's also fine to do something that really wasn't a good idea that you maybe thought was and you're really excited about, and it didn't work because maybe it wasn't a great idea. That's okay. That can happen, but every time that happens, being really honest with yourself and your team and sitting down, not blaming people, not pointing fingers, but saying, okay, what did we think? And what actually happened? I like to run everything as a literal science experiment, right? Like if we haven't tested something before, if we're starting net new on something, what's our hypothesis? What are the variables? What's our control? What do we hope to get out of this? Because then when you have that really set out for yourself, whether something does well or not, you should always be looking at the results of something, right? And being honest with yourself about this worked, because that way you can continue to iterate on that and expand, or saying this failed and it didn't meet our hypothesis, or this variable didn't work, but these two were okay, but that one really, it dragged us down. So I think you have to be really honest with yourself and your team about why this didn't work. And not make those same mistakes again. So it's really what you were saying. It's like you have to be able to test properly. You can't test if there's no controls versus a variable. And you can't just say, you can't cherry pick your metrics. I think that's very common, especially like when I was maybe in the agency world. Something wouldn't go well, but you can look at metrics and say, well, it says it was okay. It said there was some growth. It's like, yeah, I could tell any story I really wanted to, if I'm being honest, from metrics, unless absolutely everything had tanked. And even then I could probably make up an excuse for why, right?
Yeah.
So I think you really, like you said, you have to have a controlled experiment and then be able to go back and say, this is why this didn't work. We should either scrap this, or here's where I think it went wrong, and we can try again. And looking at all of those pieces. There's so much that goes into why something could fail from a marketing perspective. You could have had great messaging, but your imagery could have been terrible, or the product might not be great. And so it's really digging in and saying, where are all the places we don't think this went well? And I think another thing is asking your community maybe why they didn't like something. If something flopped, and you don't have to do it so publicly on Instagram, be like, why did you guys hate this? Why did you guys buy this? But you can send out emails and be like, are you guys liking this product? Are you not? Or what do you want to see more of from us? And see if there's a disconnect. Maybe you haven't been talking to your consumers and you've just, like I said, been living in your own world, in your own bubble of what you think is cool and what you think is going to work. And you completely detracted from your customer base. The other day, I know I'm kind of rambling here, but I put out a survey on my newsletter because, like I said, I'm trying to iterate on this next phase. And Substack has a group chat feature, and I personally don't love the chat feature. I don't like the way it's set up in Substack specifically for me. And I didn't think it was the type of community that I want to build. And so I was like, well, maybe that's just a me problem, and I need to figure out how to use it well, or figure out what my community wants. So I put in there 4 responses, and one of them was like, I want to be up to date on news, or I want to be able to network, or I want to understand brand and marketing things that are going on. And then the last option I gave them was, I don't like the chat feature. It annoys me. It overwhelms me. Please don't make me use it. And a lot of people posted that. I thought, great. Then I won't use it, and I will find a different way to connect with you guys in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming and that adds value that's beneficial for both of us. And I think it could have been really easy for me to say, oh my gosh, everyone that I follow has these amazing chats that are really engaged, and I need to be using that too. And just gone with it and alienated people. And so if you're not talking to your customer base often, you're not hearing what they actually need, and you're just saying, well, this is what I like to do, or this is what I think works right, or this is what other people on LinkedIn said would go well, there's going to be a disconnect.
Yeah, talking to people is such a valuable skill in life in every way possible. And I feel like sometimes there's an aversion to actually just getting behind away from our computers to talk to people. I posted on X the other day that I'm planning on, I'm not really, but I don't know, joking at least, that I'm planning on having my Gen Alpha daughters work as a telemarketer for a little while, so they can actually learn how to pick up a phone, call somebody, talk on the phone, leave a voicemail, these skills that I feel like we learned the hard way, that their generation maybe it just hasn't had the opportunity to develop. But I want to jump over to this idea of bridging physical and digital, because it's something that I think you've talked about a lot that I really appreciate. But what does it really mean to bridge physical and digital experiences in retail?
Yeah, I think that depends on if you started first as physical or digital and which way you're branching out. I am of the belief that physical is not dead, and it's never dead. It's dead because you didn't do it well. It's not dead because it's a dead avenue. So I think, you're seeing a lot of brands, whether they just do pop-ups, and that could be for a weekend, that could be seasonal. I think it's always great if you're a digitally native brand to be able to have some sort of physical space eventually, or for a short period of time, where brands can really connect and understand your brand world, or consumers can connect with you and your brand world in a physical way. I think it's especially important for retail because depending on your product, if people want to touch and see and smell a product, it either kind of makes it or breaks it for them. But it may be a place, if I'm somebody who's buying an activewear brand constantly online and I'm starting to realize it's not fitting or something's not working, or I've had to make 2 or 3 purchases. For me, that's annoying, and it may just deter me from making any purchases in the future, where if I could go in person and try on all those pieces, at once and see which ones work best for me, it allows me to just make those purchases and those decisions easier and quicker. And anytime that you make decisions easier for your customer, the more likely they are to convert. So whether that's only putting out the actual options that they need, so don't launch a brand with, 40 SKUs, launch a brand with 5, understand what works, iterate, grow, give them the decisions that they need, don't overwhelm them, and making purchases easy for them. So I think you're seeing a lot of brands like Vivrel has a pop-up right now in the Hamptons. I think that's great because that's like a rental brand for luxury handbags, and a lot of people aren't just gonna feel comfortable always going to Saks and walking through Chenault and touching and feeling and seeing, but it's still a fun experience that they want. So I think that that's important for them. I think if you're a physical brand, I think understanding how to translate to digital in a way where you're not reducing options, because I think if somebody shops with you a lot in person, it's because they have a great experience with you, where they know what the brand looks like, or they know the products that they can come to expect from their experience, or the sales experience that they can come to expect. And I think if you go digital and you just throw things up on a website because you want somebody in a completely different state to be able to buy some products for you, and you're not thinking about your original customer and you're alienating them, that's where you're going to have a mishap in what brand experience feels like, which I think is so crucial for any retail brand, because there's so many out there. So understanding what your value prop is as an experience, I think is really huge. I also think if you're talking about either way, I think the sales experience is something that people are really trying to understand. You'll see a lot of brands, I wrote about this the other week, who are kind of adopting that Apple model of shopping, where there's just tables out and the product is there, and there's not a cash rep, right? Because it allows your customer to come in and browse around and discover and see pieces. And when they come to you, they have a pointed question on, how does this fit? Or do you have more of these? Does this come in another color? Tell me about this product. And so you're giving really pointed advice. I remember one of my first sales jobs in New York, I won't say the brand, could have been really amazing, but their sales process was so dated. And they would say, a corporate would come up with these ideal ICPs, and here's what we're selling this week, and here's what's on sale, and here's what we want you to push. This is, part of our entire campaign. And somebody would come in asking, literally, I had this experience, they were asking for a gown. It was their daughter's sweet 16 or something. They needed a full gown. I was working on getting her some options. It was a brand that had really cool product in that space. And when she was in the fitting room, the managers were coming over and they were like, you need to tell her about that product. The one that corporate said, we need to push. Sure. It was a pair of ripped pink jeans that had glitter in them. And why would I offer that to her? Because now she's not going to trust me. She's going to think I'm just selling her things to, get that ticket price up so that I get more commission. And I wouldn't do it. I refused to do it. And she ended up buying the gown. It was great. And I got in trouble still anyways. And I remember thinking that's not how this should work. And I think the old method of sales in person it's just so dated, and it's not great for your consumer. If you're just trying to push product, your consumer can feel that. They can feel that you don't care about me, you don't care about the products, that you're not taking any time to get to know me. And so I think that new kind of model that you'll see in Glossier, Majuri, obviously pioneered by Apple, allows people to walk around, experience, discover, talk to somebody who's standing in front of something they like, communicate with them, build that kind of community, have a brand feel. And then when they finally come to ask you things, you already know a little bit more about them. So any other advice or anything else you try to sell them on feels really targeted. And I think that's what people love about digital in a way, is that, like you're saying with ads, is that you can have a really pointed experience. Hey, I talked into my phone. I said I want a purple sweater. Now purple sweaters are showing up everywhere. It's my conspiracy.
It's a fair conspiracy.
But I'm searching for something, and now I'm going to get ads for it on Instagram, right? And that feels really pointed. I'm like, great. That helped my shopping experience personally. And it made my life easy. I personally love a targeted ad. Help me find what I'm looking for. And I think a lot of brands are trying to do that now with what the search function looks like on their website. Because if you go into a store and you're looking to buy something, you're not looking to buy red midi dress. You're looking to buy, like, I have an event or I'm going on vacation to Mexico with my friends. So these are the products I need. And so search is really starting to evolve in that sense, on, your own site, to be able to allow people to shop like that and connect them with the same products. And so I think bridging both of those just allows you to understand your consumer better, what they're actually searching for, give them a better experience, give them a better feeling of trust and authenticity in your brand, whether it's from your sales associates in person or the way their sales associate via search functions online. And your overall brand experience is going to be better for them. And that makes them come back over and over. I think we overcomplicate what it means to have a great customer experience. And it's ease of shopping, it's trust, it's speed. Like, it's really not that difficult. I think we've overdone it, and people are screaming for the experiences that they want. They're telling you. And I think there can be a disconnect sometimes between corporate. I'm not here to bash on corporate, but
sure,
what's going on over here and what's actually happening, like boots on the ground. Or like I said, what's actually going on with the data on your website? If you have like Hotjar or something, how are people actually using your site? Are they searching and bouncing because they can't find what they want really quickly? Are they like rage clicking through things? Really understanding your data and what's happening to bridge those experiences.
I love that you've gone down such a really good path for bridging digital and physical from retail. A lot of who we talk to would be more in the DNVB camp than the retail camp, at least on this podcast. And so one of the more approachable ways that you talked about was pop-ups. And I like that because it's like, maybe you're not quite at the point where you're setting up your own stores, but you could do the pop-ups. What's the key to making these moments, let's just say, both memorable as well as measurable?
Yeah, I think a good pop-up, if it's one of your first ones, you're still early stage. For me, the aesthetics of it really do make or break. And that can seem sometimes, I think, really like fluffy, frivolous to some brands. But I think if it's some of your first experiences creating your brand world, it's important to make people feel like they've just stepped into almost the website. That kind of feeling that I said in the beginning of where I want to just like jump into magazine editorials. So I wanted to live this life. People are coming to visit you because they loved the experience that they had online. They love the products they got, and now they want to see it in person, and they really want to feel like they're a part of this community. But something that I think is really, really such a sign of success is that in-person community feel. So you'll see a lot if you search around. Park is this brand that popped up a few years ago, and I talk about them often because I found them pretty early. Actually, I found them before they launched and loved their original products. I've kind of grown out of it now as they've grown, but I talk often about their founder and how I think she is such a formidable first-time founder because she has her foot on this industry's neck in terms of being able to corral a group of girls who are just hanging on every product she makes. And when she does these pop-ups, she's always talking about how these girls are waiting in line and they're becoming friends. And now they're talking to each other and they're following each other on Instagram and they're getting together. And they lived in the city. Well, now they're going to a workout class together and they found each other through that brand. That brand was that touch point for them. And that is such a strong sign of community. You can try and cultivate community on your own and bring people together. But when your customers start getting together on their own because of your brand, that to me is the ultimate sign of community. If you weren't really technically involved to an extent, that's incredible. And I think that's what pop-ups are really great for. So I think, one, think about experiences that are beyond just the product there. I think Sporty and Rich, obviously, if I keep talking about them, but I think she's doing so well as well. Obviously, her store in New York isn't a pop-up, but something that she did really well was she's such a brand world builder. And there's a spa, I think, in the New York store, or I've had friends who have had matcha bars inside their stores. And so it's like, what else does your consumer like that makes them feel really excited? Like, I'm a park girl. Like, I wear these mock necks. I drink matcha. I go to Pilates. Like, that's a really basic, explanation of a person. Like, it's very,
Sure.
It's very surface level on who your demographic is. But those small things and ways that you can kind of add them in a pop-up experience that make people feel really connected to your brand beyond you just saying, come here, I have product, come buy it. Well, they already buy from you, right? So like, make them feel special, make them feel like almost like it's a gift to them. Like, I'm so thankful that you guys support my brand. I want you to come here and and feel like I'm giving you something, feel excited about this, and feel like it's a time for both of us to connect. Don't just think about it as, here's our sales per square footage and this is what we want our UPT to be, and here's what like the AOV should have been. Like, I think you have to think in those kind of non-tangible brand metrics that scare a lot of people.
And it is hard, but when you do it well, I think that you will see like things like your LTV go up over time with certain cohorts, right?
Yes.
And I talk about this on the ad side all the time as well, where the very first thing that a lot of people do after you buy something on their website is you show them an ad to buy more stuff. Literally like the same day that they just did, and you're showing them, and not even good ads, like DPA ads of like, here's product and price, buy more stuff. And when I try to talk to brands about this, is it's like, romance this. I love this idea of like husband and wife, right? Where you're like, okay, what would you do like if your wife, like as soon as you did like one thing and she was like, great, here's the other 10 things that I need you to do too. It's like, versus saying like, hey, thank you, let's go on a date, let's do something, let's have some fun. Like you have to have a relationship with your customers. And I think that, to your point, you can do this both online, and I talk about like the online version of creating that relationship, but you could do this offline as well, where it's not just about the product, but about the whole experience.
Yeah. So, and that is such a great point. If you're talking about this husband and wife, maybe I just took my wife shopping and she bought this dress. The next thing I'm not going to do is be like, well, now I need to go buy some more things, or, oh, no, you need to buy something else right away. It's like, let her go wear the dress, take her on a nice date, like let her experience the product and feel the entire experience around it. So it's like, I think whether it comes to pop-ups and you maybe are thinking of events that you're doing in that same city beyond the actual store, maybe you're getting people together at like some, again, this is like it's not a terrible example, but maybe you're going on a walk with all of them. Like, hey, the store it's going to open later today on Sunday because for the first 2 hours, we're all going to meet over here and go on a walk together. And you're bringing them together and you're all going to wear your park hoodies. And they are, right? Like, they're going to wear the product. And I think this works for brands in a lot of ways when you're thinking about partnerships. Like if you are an activewear brand, like maybe you're partnering with people. I think like Aloe does this really well, where when you buy a product from Aloe, they have Aloe Moves, and obviously that's a little bit easier for them to control because it's under their umbrella. But if I'm buying some activewear, like I said, don't send me an email again asking me to buy another piece. Send me an email that says, here's 50% off to our partner at the Sculpt Society for you to use for a month. And the rest of our girls use it too. And now you feel really like one of us, right? Like you're in this community. You're going to wear this brand that I just sold to you, your cute little activewear brand. You're going to go do Sculpt Society in the morning in your house. You're going to take a picture of it and you're going to post it on Instagram. You're going to add it to your TikTok video. I'm going to repost it. Other people are also going to now see that I'm XYZ girl and this is what my lifestyle looks like, and they want to be that girl too. And now they're bringing people in. So like you said, it may not feel immediate, but I think when you're scaling as well, I think like even like scaling up to 1 million, everything you do feels like you can see a result pretty quickly, right? But when you start getting into that space where you're scaling 10 to 50, 50 to 100, those like not so tangible brand metrics are things that maybe you don't see the next day, but like you said, you'll see long term, and they will really help you grow because they're solidifying that brand. They're really getting you those repeat customers. They're getting people excited about your brand. They're hanging on for every next thing you do, and it just makes your brand more sustainable. And those are things that you have to think about as you're really scaling to those next stages that are so important. And I think it's scary because you can't always, like you said, see that KPI like right away. And what's that number and what's that metric? And not everything has a number and a metric. I'm a big believer of like, sometimes you do have to kind of vibe check and you have to feel things out, and you'll see those numbers, like you said, eventually. And again, that might be part of your hypothesis where you say, we're going to do this pop-up and we hope that within 6 months, our LTV is up to this number, our AOV is up to here. The partnerships that we've secured with other brands is XYZ. Our press mentions are XYZ. And so it might just take some time. It might be you're playing the long game at that point.
Yeah, and that's hard for people to think through sometimes. Yeah. I feel like I've noticed that brick and mortar, to me at least, feels like it's trending again. My middle school daughters, they wanted to go to the Mall of America for their birthday and bring their friends. And so right. So it seems like it feels like we're wanting to get back into stores a little bit more.
Yeah.
What does this signal to you about the consumer behavior?
Yeah, I think quite a few things. The pendulum swings quite often. I think
Sure.
pre-COVID, people were really into brick and mortar again, and we were seeing brands get really just interesting on what they were doing. I would go, to LA and walk down Melrose, and I loved going to Glossier. I loved going into Outdoor Voices, and I loved how fun they made the shopping experience, and that it felt fun to like walk in and out of stores and discover things. And I think obviously during COVID, when we weren't able to go as many places, the pendulum swung hard back to e-com, and people got really great about what scaling a brand in that space looked like. And we were seeing kind of that 2021, 2022 big partnership, like every brand was partnering with other brands, and that's how we were growing. And, what did D2C look like? And it was just taking off and being funded like crazy. But I think post-COVID, we're seeing a lot of people, especially younger people who maybe didn't have as much of a social life because they were just so young, start to grow into those years and realize they don't maybe always want to be online. They're really yearning for community. And I think the brands that we were seeing really kind of lead this retail renaissance again are the ones who understand that their retail space isn't just for selling product, it becomes a community hub. So like I said, do they bring in people to come do a yoga class in the morning? Do they use like bandit running? I think running is actually a great place for me to make a little tangent here. As a runner, for years, no one was touching any market share for Nike. And in the past, I think it's like 3 to 4 years, there's like 5 brands that have popped up that have actively taken away market share. So you have like Hoka, you have On Cloud, you have Bandit. And what I think is like coolest about Bandit is that they create a storefront that is literally their meeting place for their run clubs. Sure. And it's like people want that, like they want to go to a place where they feel like is a home base for them and they have community and they can meet other people who want to do the same things as them. And obviously we all live our lives, most of us, very much online, but you're seeing younger people, whether it's like the younger half of Gen Z and like you're saying Gen Alpha, yes, they love like Roblox and they're shopping a ton on there and that's what their space looks like, but they like getting together with people and they need that community, and their lives were upended in such a strange way at a very pivotal time. And I think you're seeing, like I said, brands really understand what their retail should look like more. So they do a few pop-ups and they really understand where should I be, what works for my brand, and they're not diluting their space and thinking, how am I going to scale to 100 stores? I have 4 or 5 stores across the country that are really just great touch points for people to, one, come and visit, right? Like it's exciting. They add it into their itinerary. Oh, I want to go stop by that store and see it. It looks amazing. Then they go there and they get excited about it, becomes part of their plan. And then they're able to, like I said, touch and feel that product and get their eyes on it and try it on and see if it works for them and see what products they like. And it helps bridge, again, that digital experience. They can purchase more often. But I think people they want a fun retail experience, and they want to be with people, but they want to have a reason to go, whether it's this looks like a fun experience or I'm going to meet like-minded people. And I think the brands who understand that and look for experience before they start to just scale, for growth at all costs, they're going to be really successful in this next wave, and they'll understand their customer better and will be able, again, to bridge those gaps.
Yeah, I love that. I want to talk a little bit about fashion tech then as well. We've talked about before, it seems like there's a lot more digital try-ons and returns logistics, in-person UX designs. What do you think is the next breakthrough or the things that you're seeing in fashion tech right now?
Oh man, I love fashion tech. There's so much going on right now. It's so innovative, and I feel like it's really made fashion fun again. It's hard for me to pick just one place because I talk to people all the time. I'm like, oh, that's genius. How did I not think of that? Like, of course I need that. I do think digital try-on, as we continue to get deeper into it, will be really incredible. FitMatch AI is a company that I worked with a little bit. They are an app that scans you, does a 360 scan of your body, and then takes all of your measurements into account to see what size you would be at a brand. And when I first tested with them, I did my scan and they sent me over their first iteration. It was like sports bras and some tops. And it was so accurate because different Lululemon fabrics and styles I wear a different size in. And they run a different size. Some of their things run 2468 and some run a 3436, like a bra. They were so accurate, so insanely accurate. And I think that's so helpful for people to understand, well, I think I might wear this size, or I kind of look like that person. So let me go into their FitMatch and, look at their measurements and see how close they are to mine, and will that fit me then? And then that helps with your returns, right? Like that helps your bottom line. It also just helps somebody feel more confident in their purchases. People don't want to have to buy 4 sizes when they buy something and then know that they're going to have to make a return. Making returns is annoying. It's not fun for the consumer. So I think when you hear brands be like, oh, we've got to, punish people sometimes, they can't make any more purchases from us or any more returns. It's like, well, why did they have to in the first place? What information was lacking from them? What was the disconnect in your products that, the sizing wasn't consistent? They don't want to make returns. I don't want to drive down to UPS all the time to make returns. It's really obnoxious. There's a lot of other places I'd rather drive to and go spend my time at. So I think to think that people want to do that is crazy.
I think you're right on most of the time, but I have to tell a story here because it's really good. My mother-in-law, I will tease her, and I will tease her to her face about this. I'm convinced that she enjoys doing returns and will buy things just to return them. So really? we were in New York City, Black Friday. I don't remember what year this was, like 2010 or something like that, because her son was living there at the time, and so my brother-in-law. So we went out and visited him, and she's out there. And I swear she bought stuff, and then we get back to his apartment, and she was like, "No, I don't like it. We got to return it." Everybody's like this is chaos, right? Like this is absolutely a zoo. She's like, "Now we got to return this." So we did. I took her back down there to return this. But I do jokingly say that I'm pretty sure she enjoys doing returns. Like this is something that she gets a kick out of.
Do they like doing returns, or do they like just purchasing? I don't know.
Sure, that's fair too.
That, right? There's a lot of people who just get like that dopamine hit from like, I'm just going to grab all these things and they don't need it. Something I'm really big on, I shop very particularly because I've been around product for a long time. I know what fits me well. I know what I like. I know my style pretty well. So when I shop, it is like, it's very thought out. It's very considered. I rarely make a spontaneous purchase unless I absolutely have a connection to something. And things that I love are brands like Carded, or Locker, which are wishlist apps. I use the plugins most often. I use the app when I'm shopping on my phone, but I shop a lot on desktops because I'm on my computer a lot all day. And what those types of brands allow you to do is if you're shopping and you don't want to have 5,000 tabs open and forget about what you need, or you see something that you like, or like, I'm busy right now, I don't have time to look at this, you want to save it, you can save it to your Carded or your Locker. You can make kind of like boards. And I know Carded has like a price feature. It'll let you know if something drops in price so you know when to purchase it. It also allows you to see all the things you have saved and just sit and think about your purchases for a minute, because a lot of people are really in such an overconsumption phase. And I get it. It's really difficult. Like you see everyone online buying something all the time and spending a lot of money, especially when we look at like influencers, and then you find out almost everything they're wearing was sent to them. They weren't even purchasing it. Or we're thinking everyone's spending a lot more money than they are, or we don't repeat outfits. And it's a whole thing, and a lot of people in fashion tech are trying to solve for that. But I think those two brands really like solve an actual gap of people needing to like take a second. It slows you down and make better purchase decisions, and then that behavior changes, and it's really organic. And I think anytime you're trying to change consumer behavior, it's usually really difficult and very expensive if you're a brand. Totally. But I think having companies like that who make it fun and make it feel intuitive, they do help change consumer behavior over time, and it makes it a lot easier. It's so native to me now. I've been using these apps for probably 2, maybe 3 years. And I do it when I'm in person. I'll scan something on like the brand's app and I'll be like, I don't know that I need this right now. Sure. I'll get it into their app. I'll upload it into my Carded or my Locker, and I'll sit on it for a second. And then like the other day I was at H&M and I wanted to buy something. And I was like, I don't need this today. And I had it saved and it went down to $3. And I was like, well, for $3, I have to have it, right? Like, right. That's great. But I wouldn't have known that because I wouldn't have gone, back in store. So those things are really fun to me. I do think digital try-on, like I said, there's a lot that are getting better. There's some like Doji, which are really cool because they're pulling in like really like high-end brands, and they're allowing for more of like a personal styling experience, which I think if people are trying to find their style, that can be really difficult. It can be really overwhelming to do that in person because, like I said, not everyone wants to go to a high-end retailer and try on a bunch of different products or knows how to style pieces. Maybe they don't have access to it. Maybe they're somewhere that's more rural and they don't have access to these clothes, but they love fashion. They want to play in that space and be excited about it. I think that's really cool. I think Benny is amazing. Again, another one that I use their plugin most often, but basically if you're on a site and you see something you like, it will scan every like secondhand market to find you that piece pre-owned and at a better price. And one, better for the planet, but two, saves you money, right? Who doesn't love that? And they have a ton of other features now. So people are building so much. There's a lot on the B2B side, brands that I work with, that I'm so excited for them to really grow and for brands to integrate all of these. I think a lot of the ones who are even like more consumer facing right now, they have such potential for brands to, start using them and adding to our experience, and taking that data and seeing what people want. It's a super fun industry right now.
You didn't mention the Apple Vision Pro though. Like, have you tested out any of the Apple Vision Pro stuff yet?
I have not.
So,
No.
Okay, when it comes to digital try-on, I'm very excited about this yet. They don't have it yet, but I did a review of Alo's, their shopping experience, and it is cool because you can have the model there and you can spin it around in 3D and see it all, right? And so like there's a couple of different things that are, I'd say right now they're just, I don't know, they're interesting, but they're not that exciting yet. But you talked about this idea of being able to have like your full body measurements. And actually what I'm excited about is being able to see that exact thing on me, right? Like, and I think that we're really close to that being a reality. We can even use AI engines. So that way, if you say that, whatever that exact fabric is, that fabric will stretch correctly from a physics standpoint in the way that it needs to, because we can really just add that into the algorithm, if we would, right, from an AI perspective. And so I think that we're not far from being able to see that. And then to your point, somebody like me who's not that cool, doesn't understand fashion or what needs to happen, I could look at this and be like, I don't know what I should wear with this, right? But it's like, well, then I can even maybe put on my actual clothes that I have right now. It's like, this is what I've got, but it's like, I don't know what else to do with it. And then it could be like, hey, great, we're just going to layer this on and this on and this on. And you're like, oh, I like that. And you're like, you can buy these extra pieces here. Here's the, the links to these pieces. You're like, okay, great. Now I don't have to look at, say, okay, great, you just showed me like 10 things that I have to buy, and I can't buy 10 things, but I can buy one or two new staples, right? And now I can have my own clothes on, put this on me, try on now that sport coat to see it with the shirts and the pants that I already have. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I like that. And see how it fits me.
I think one I'm really excited about, there was a lot of brands that popped up with kind of digitizing your wardrobe, and I never got super into it because it felt like a really big lift. And I was like, well, I just don't know all of what I'm going to do with that. Like, what are the features with it? And there's a lot of great ones. I'm just saying, personally, for me, it wasn't like something that I was like, I need to do right now. But there's a founder, she runs this company called Tote, and she just kind of came out with their next iteration, like a big pivot on their brand. Originally, I believe, when I would see it, it was, you would post pictures of your outfit for the day. And it was like really realistic outfits and getting inspo from other people. So it felt like a social way to get inspiration and shop. And there was affiliate links, and thought that was great. But their new iteration allows you to upload your wardrobe. And then their AI agent will say like, oh, I'm in Vegas, right? It's super hot. And you can say like, this is like what I have planned for the day. And it will go through all of the items that you've uploaded and say, here's an outfit for you today. And that, to me, I'm like, that's so good. Like, especially if you're traveling, it'll help you like make a packing list. But if I'm going to travel and say like, the other week I was in Miami and I brought things, I could have been like, okay, today it's sunny and these are the things I have to do, what I have to wear. Well, the next day when it's raining, it's like, well, my outfit needs to change a little bit compared to what I thought I was going to bring. And it'll help me. It helps you just see your wardrobe in a different way, and I think get more use for people out of things. I know Index is one that does like cost per wear, I believe. And just gets you to like use what's in your wardrobe more often. I think you can do like flat lays on theirs as well. So once you upload, your wardrobe, you can kind of style it yourself, or I think other people can style your stuff too. So if you're like, I'm stumped, I don't know what to wear, like your friend can go in and be like, here's all these pieces, and you might not have seen your wardrobe in that way. And I think those things are, again, changing consumer behavior in ways where we think of like overconsumption right now, and what sustainability can mean in a lot of different ways. And a lot of that really is just slowing people down and producing less. We talk about like buying products that are certain fabrics or always buying secondhand. All of that is great. The best thing to do is try and shop your closet for as long as you can. And so if we can maximize that and then continue to have people buy secondhand and do all of those things, like we're heading in a better direction. And you're making it feel fun. And like I said, it's really hard to change consumer behavior. And if you can do it in ways that feel fun and intuitive, then we're on the right path. And those are the types of companies where I'm excited to see, what do their B2B integrations look like eventually. So when I'm shopping on a site, can I kind of flat lay something and say, does this fit into my wardrobe? Like, I want to buy this piece, but does it match with anything that I have in my closet? Am I actually going to get any wear out of this? Yeah, I think there's so much potential, and we're figuring it all out, and there's a lot going on right now, and I'm excited to see in like 5-10 years when maybe some people start merging, or we start really seeing some big raises for these companies, and they're allowed to, not allowed, but able to get to that next level and get in front of a lot of people. Yeah, I'm super, super excited for it.
It feels like this is right on the cusp of some very, very good things. It's like it's there, it's usable, and it's like we're just, like you said, a couple years away from this being just seamlessly integrated. I want to talk a little bit about, let's just say, retail strategy and category psychology. You had sent me an article about Zara and some of their layout changes that they had. Walk me through what are some of the layout changes that they had, and that you think, like, why is this beneficial?
Yeah, I think there was a lot about layout changes and putting in new floors and all these pieces. But what I really thought that was the most beneficial about what they did was technology that they implemented that just made your shopping experience quicker. And I think that, like I said, brands, there's a fine line between knowing when somebody wants to have a great all-in experience at your store with your brand. And there's also knowing that sometimes people just need things and they need clothes and they need it to be easy. And that doesn't mean they're not having a great brand experience, but that brand experience is now pivoted to, I need something quickly, I need convenience. And I think that the technology they started to implement was really in line with understanding how people need to shop in that manner. I think it's something that Target has done really well, having Drive Up and being able to do returns with Drive Up, or being able to order my Starbucks when I go to pick up my order. And now I'm like, it's a 2-for-1. I didn't have to get out of the car at all, and I'm in and out, and something was ready in a few hours. Zara kind of implemented some RFID technology and things along those lines that allowed people to come in and pick things up quicker or make returns much easier. And I think it talks a lot about how women shop. And I talk about this a lot, especially on the newsletter, but women control 85% of consumer spend. And that doesn't just mean that we have more money or something. It means that a lot of times, even if we're not the head of household, that we are making a lot of financial decisions in terms of what shopping actually looks like. So if, maybe you're a stay-at-home mom, you're buying all the groceries, you're buying everything that you need to maintain your home, but you're also probably buying a lot of your husband's clothes or the things that he needs day to day, right? And I don't think brands think about a lot of if you don't know how to talk to women and understand how to get them excited for your products, even if they're not your end consumer, it may not get purchased. They're going to go where they understand. And women's role in society is really shifting. And, there's so much about what we're doing, but a huge part is that, we're not getting married a lot of times until a little bit later. We're not having kids until later. We're going to college or maybe getting additional degrees. We're really moving up in our careers or starting businesses, and our lives have just become really busy and really full. And so looking at the way that we shop while we still hold that consumer spend is really important, because we might not always have the time to go and just, waft around Zara and, go through. Sometimes I need to go on that app. I need to search for what I need. I need to see it immediately. I need to add it to cart, pick it up within an hour and grab it. And whatever didn't fit, I need to be able to send it back quickly, because we just don't have as much time. And especially if you add kids into that, or, you do choose to get married and now you have a really full life. Oftentimes women, we're not staying home. We're having kids and getting married and still going to work. That's a really busy life. That's a lot that women are doing. It's a lot for anybody, but especially when you have, just those additional pressures. And so understanding how women's lives are changing and creating retail experiences that can talk to a multitude of different women, and how we've changed even over the last 10, 20 years, I think is super beneficial. I think Zara did a really great job at that. And I think that those are some of the things where you'll read it and you won't really see, if you're not looking, why it was important that they did that. It just seems like, oh, it's convenient, or oh, it was time for an update, or oh, they needed to, expand the brand a little bit. Oh, they wanted to change their positioning. But at the end of the day, anything you do has to be to make money, right? You need your customers to spend money. And so it's how all those choices that I just said, your positioning or having a better experience, it comes down to your customer spending money. And you need to find a way to connect with her, to get her to spend that money, and to be able to do it in a way that doesn't interfere with her life. Because like I've said a million times already on this podcast, you need to solve for real problems, and you need to understand your consumer, and you need to understand where they're at, and you need to create experiences that match them where they're at. And if you don't, like, there will be no moving forward.
I like that you called out that your consumer might not be the person who the product is actually for, right? That the person who's actually going to make the purchase might be the wife. It might be the grandparent. It might be the parent for their kid. Like it could be, there's a lot of other things that are in here. What are some other ways? Let's say that this was like a brand just super targeted towards guys. Let's say that it's car wash stuff that is definitely just, it is intended to be super masculine, manly car wash stuff or whatever. What are some ways in which they could say, well, okay, how do we make sure that we're still reaching that guy's wife, who may be the one who's actually making the purchase?
Yeah, I think it's maybe not as much of having to implement it 24/7 across your positioning and be like, okay, here's some marketing that's going out to men, here's some that's going out to women. Okay, in our paid, we're going to try and, focus it here. I think brands are doing it really well. I'm not sure if anyone's on TikTok, then you've probably seen these where there's car dealerships and they have these men, a lot of them are dads, they're probably like in their mid 40s, late 40s, early 50s. And it's not even just car dealerships, but this is one that really comes to mind, is they'll be using a lot of like slang and like things that we say like on TikTok.
Sure.
And they'll be talking to women and they'll be like, you'll look so slay in here, girly pop. And it's funny because it's ridiculous, and it's like a joke and you can tell they're kind of uncomfortable, but they're doing it to be like, they find reasons why like the car, like whatever, being like all wheel drive would be like beneficial for you if you like hit a curb or something, and it's funny, like, and I think doing things like that where you can get them in a little bit and be like, oh, they are listening, like it is funny, just gets them in the door and at least gets you ahead of people who aren't doing it at all. And I wish we saw it more from like, I think about like golf brands a lot, not that women don't golf, right? But a lot of husbands like to spend a lot of time out on the golf course. And if your wife wants to buy you something for your birthday or a holiday or for any reason, like, does she know anything about this? And are you making it easy for somebody who has no experience at all, possibly with said hobby? It's not just golf, like any hobby that your wife possibly has, that you're like, I know she loves this, but I let it be her thing. If you go to buy her something in that space and you're starting from absolutely zero, is the education there at all to help walk somebody through making a purchase? And making a purchase that's good for her, like that's really difficult to do. So I think that's also just a part of it, is making sure that you're not just talking to somebody who's already a user of your product, but making sure that your whole like messaging hierarchy throughout like the customer experience, and I hate to talk about a funnel because I think it's very dated, but that it's meeting people at all places. I've talked to a lot of brands where I got on like somebody's landing page the other day and I was like, this is essentially the page that I should see if I was logged in. But you're talking to this person as if they already work with your company and they already use it. And you're not trying to sell me and give me any education on why I should join. It's very confusing. Yeah. And so understanding your messaging hierarchy, and then I think having fun with it and just not making it so serious, where it has to be, oh, this is just for women and we're going to have a whole offshoot and then we're going to target this much of our, allocate this much of our budget to put into it. It's like, there's things that can be funny. Understand cross-culturally, I think, anyways, what's going on for your consumer. Like if you're somebody who has a running brand, well, what else do they use and what else is going on in their world and what else are they keeping up with, right? Understanding that. And I think that's important for anybody. So understand what's going on in the family of your consumer's world and be able to kind of talk to that a little bit and just throw some things in every now and then that, they don't have to be so serious. Have fun with your brand.
So good.
And be flexible with it.
Yeah, we need more fun. We need more flexibility.
Yeah.
I want to shift into talking about who is Carly Chenault, because I think that it's fun to get to know the human being behind each one of these episodes. I understand that you were diagnosed with ADHD later in life. How did you find out that you had ADHD?
Yeah, I think it was something that I kind of maybe always thought in the back of my mind. I actually had a cousin who was like ADHD and was very like hyperactive. And I remember being around her one time being like, oh my God, this is a lot, and I was younger. I was like in my teens and that was the first time I'd ever really experienced that. It wasn't until I was, I think, in college that I started to be like, oh, some things are starting to feel a little bit harder. I think high school felt kind of easy for me and I didn't have to study a lot. And I was able to get through things quickly. And I think that might have just been because of where things were being taught and not necessarily because I was like some super smart person by any means. So it was easier for me. And I remember getting into college and realizing like, oh, I'm a very visual learner. I knew that about myself at that point. So I need to take a lot of notes because I couldn't just remember things when I would sit in like, these lecture halls now, and that was super different. And when teachers would like post their own lecture, and it was so much easier for me because I needed to see things like written out on a board and I could remember that. And that's how I would study. I couldn't just look at a note and try and memorize. My brain, if I thought back to what I was studying, could see the flashcard, that it was on. Yep. And I started realizing that it was a little bit more difficult for me to manage all the things I had going on. I remember in middle school, you had like 7 or 8 classes. And I remember the whole time just being like, excuse my language, like, this is hell. Like, I can't do this. Like, I was struggling really hard. And when I got to high school and I was in block scheduling, thrived, did so much better because it was just, there was more time focused on something, and it wasn't like I had so many different little things to do. Little things are actually very easy for me now, crossing off little things on my to-do list. I started realizing once I was at like Barney's that when I would have to like write a paper, like a report on something, starting like staring at a blank Word doc, I could not do anything. I would just stare at it and freeze. And the only thing that would get me to end up doing it would be like, this is due tomorrow.
Sure.
Like, it needs to be done.
It's a classic ADHD symptom. 100%.
Yeah.
You need the pressure.
And I what I would have to do was like write something that had nothing to do with what I was trying to work on, and then be like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. What I actually wanted to say was, and delete it all. And then my brain would be able to start looking through it. And I do that a lot now. I do my newsletter. I think if you read it, you'll see it's like a lot of stream of consciousness. And a lot of times I'll even throw into AI, like write an intro to my newsletter based on this. And it will. And I'll be like, oh, that's awful. And I'll delete the whole thing and be like, what I actually wanted to say was, sure. And it helps my brain like get started. I can't start from a point of zero. And so that, and then like that kind of shame that comes with feeling like, am I being lazy? Why can't I manage all these things? Is it actually just too much work? Or am I expecting too much of myself, or is it not? And I think comparing yourself to people who are just like very productive people, like we're all productive, I think, in different ways, and learning that was really different. And then I think people just started talking about it more, and I started thinking like, oh, maybe this is something a little bit different. And a lot of it happened when I was like getting into my 30s, and I think for women, there's a lot of things that change for us. And to get like even more personal, I got off my birth control, I had some other things happen. So I thought like maybe like my hormones were just changing, and I was getting more tired, and I was older, and like things were just feeling a little more difficult until I started like taking a lot of online tests, which I don't really recommend. But I was like, or is this like an ADHD symptom, or is this me being lazy? Is this me being tired? And I think hearing other people talk about like uncommon symptoms that they had really helped me feel like, oh, there's other things probably going on here.
Yeah. I think it's wise that you were able to like listen to what was going on in your mind and went and found help. I also have ADHD and wasn't diagnosed until I was an adult as well. And to your point, for me, my story is similar, where it's like there was nobody who doubted that I had it as a kid, right? Like it was probably obvious. And then even in college, I can remember like, sitting in the back of the room, and it's like nibbling pretzels to spell out words, right? Like the little like 3 pretzels. And it's like, okay, I can make an A with this, and I can do this. It's like that's a very ADHD thing. It's like, or using the condensation of a pop can to write my name on like the table, right? It's like very much. And the kicker was we were learning about ADHD in class. And the teacher was like, sometimes these kids can be so hyperactive, they're on top of the desks running around, and I was like, does she know? Because that day, as a college student, before she came into the lecture hall, I was on top of the desks running around. And it's like, okay, yeah, definitely had it, but still had never been officially diagnosed, right? Everybody's just like, oh, you're just hyperactive, probably. But it wasn't for me the uncharacteristic symptom that I didn't know was running a business. The demands get higher. I've got kids, and I was maybe, let's say, high functioning, to your point. But I started to snap. I had a short fuse. I would just get angry at things. And it's like almost impulsive. It was just like, I would just get kind of frustrated very quickly. And I remember talking to, the doctor, and had me go see a psychologist to find out what's going on. And it's like, yeah, you have ADHD. And you're just actually at the point now where you can't work through those impulses. And so those impulses hit you. And so I think, being able to learn what it is and then work towards what are the things that make me this way and how can I work to counteract that, I think has been really good. And I'd say that I'm overall in a stronger mental health game than I've ever been as a result of working through some of those things.
Because I think for me, I never felt hyperactive. I actually felt the opposite. Like I felt really run down. I felt really tired, and not just like physically. I felt like I felt like I was getting to a point where it was hard to like retain a lot of information, and I was feeling overwhelmed of like, what do I need to remember and what don't I? And I feel like I'm not getting my thoughts together. Like I feel really scrambled, and never felt hyperactive. And that's why I think I thought so many other things that like were confusing, because I also didn't know a lot of people who were like technically hyperactive, and maybe they were already medicated at that point. I don't know. But I think that, to your point, it's less scary, or it's more scary for me to feel like I don't know what's going on. Like if you have an answer, then you can figure things out. You can start finding solutions. You can figure out what's best for you. And the more you know, it's just like it's not like this big scary like black hole of like guessing all the time on things. And yeah, I just feel like the more I knew, the less scary it became, where I was like, oh, thank God, like I can just like figure something out. Like I just know what to do better. I don't feel as like worn down or like bogged down by things, or like that guilt that you're like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not getting anything done. Like I'm so lazy. I'm so unproductive. I'm never going to be like successful. I'm never gonna be able to do anything. Like you figure out then the things that you need to do and what makes sense for your brain. Like when I structure like my days and my weeks, like what does it actually look like? And I can do that now, where before I was just so like wound up and stressed about not knowing.
The way that I worded it for some people to understand, and even for myself, was imagine. So I also have glasses. I wear contacts, but my eyesight is terrible. But imagine if it's like I was playing baseball as a kid and I didn't have glasses or contacts, and it's like, man, I could just never hit the ball, right? And you're just like, well, it's because you literally can't see the ball. Like there's an actual problem here that you need to address. And once you figure out what that is, you're like, oh, now we can work on what's the right way for you to treat this. For some people, it might be medication. For others, it might be learning new tactics or tricks. Or for some, you might say, I can actually do this if I write a whole bunch of nonsensical stuff and then delete that and start from there. It's like you can start to learn what are these things that allow you to be able to hit the ball. But first, you have to know, why am I not hitting the ball?
Yeah, absolutely.
You told me that you don't necessarily have a mentor, but that you are trying to become more of a role model. Like, in what ways are you becoming a role model, and like, who are you trying to serve?
Yeah, I think that was really important for me, because I realized pretty early on that I hadn't found somebody. I think mentorship is really hard. I think very few people actually have like true mentorship versus just somebody who maybe is in their corner. But, you know, I always felt like I was having to learn all those mistakes on my own. And I realized it when I was at a startup a few years ago that I was working with like some younger girls, and I was like, they would say things that they did or that were going on. I was like, don't do that. Like, no, don't do that. And I feel like I do that a lot naturally now. Just, I feel like I'm a very, I don't want to say I'm like a self-aware person, but I feel like I'm very intuitive, or I'm very honest with myself. I do like a lot of reflection. And so there's a lot of times where I've looked back on things that I've done and been like, no, that was my fault, or I shouldn't have done that. And giving yourself grace on it, but also being like, okay, I can really dissect a situation that happened now. And so I feel like I was able to kind of start giving advice to people. When I started writing on LinkedIn and I started like talking about my career, my role, and the things that I've done, I had a lot of people reach out and be like, how have you done this? Or can you tell me about your career? And can you tell me about like the things you're working on, or if you need help with things? Like people, so many women just want to learn. So many people want to learn, but people just want to learn. And people also just want to connect. And I think something I've learned is like, a lot of times if you reach out to people and you have like an actual reason to reach out, they'll respond and they will be helpful. Not everyone has like a ton of time, so that might look different for everybody, but I still think you should try. A lot of people would reach out to me and ask me like these questions and ask if I can get on a call. And I wouldn't always have time to get on a call, but the thing that I've started doing is I would tell them like, write down all of your questions and send them to me. I will do a Loom and I'll record all the answers, and that way you have it for the longer term. It also has a transcript, and also a lot of answers overlap. So if we were on a call, like they wouldn't get as much out of that same hour or half hour, because they'd be asking me questions where like I can just get out everything that I need to. And I try and do that a lot because I didn't have it I didn't have anyone. Also, like social media just didn't exist in that way. So trying to find people who, were doing the things you wanted to do that you could really connect with, was much harder. And networking in person is it's more difficult. People are really busy. So I think now that it exists in that capacity, I think one, if you're listening and you want to reach out to people, like try, like send a message to them, DM them on LinkedIn, email them, but have a purpose. Don't just be like, can you talk to me about your career?
Like your brain.
Go to them. Yeah, go to them with like 2 or 3 pointed questions, or like tell them why you're reaching out. And people I think are really willing to give advice, but I think I just realized that back then I didn't have that. And now that people are reaching out to me, I'm like, I feel like it's so important because it'll help you from making a lot of mistakes early on in your life, or have people just soundboard with. There's so many things that I wish I had, not that I like regret, but that I would have done differently in my career. And I was always just making decisions like fully on my own. So I didn't have any perspective either. I'm fully functioning from like my experience in life. And I could have talked to maybe 2 or 3 other people at certain times to like get their opinions and be able to take all of that into account when I was making decisions, would have probably made better or different decisions. And it all worked out fine, but it's just like, I don't know, big believer in like having a lot of perspective and being able to talk to people and people with different backgrounds and understand all that. And I think it comes into play into everything, but specifically in mentorship and moving forward.
Learn from people who've done it before you, right? Like learn from the painful mistakes that they've had to make it so much better that way. You have told me that you specifically have a heart for women in this space. Why?
Why? That's a good question. Why not?
Why not? Yes, why? But why specifically, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think maybe as a woman, it's easier to maybe understand some of those feelings of when you see a woman really win or do something really exciting, that I think we're still working through all the times when we couldn't do things or when we weren't allowed to do things, and the changes that have happened. And when you see women succeed, how exciting it is. And it feels personal. Like for me, when I see other women win, I feel like I win. Like I mentioned, I run a lot, and I was reading a little bit earlier about the Boston Marathon, and I can't remember the woman's name, I wish I did, who kept trying to get on the track. And the person who started the Boston Marathon was like literally like pushing her off and was like, you cannot be in this, like women do not run. And I saw a video the other day of this little girl, she was 3, and she was running a local race, and there were so many women on the sidelines like cheering for her. And I was like in tears. I'm just like, not that long ago, we weren't even allowed to be in these races. Now there's like these 3-year-old girls, and when you see these women, like they can remember that, or they can remember like just not having these experiences, like how empowering that is for that young woman to feel like there's other women around her. When you're a young girl, and when you're young at all, like, or I'm sure you know, if your daughters give you any sort of compliment, like they really mean it, like, because little kids, like they say exactly what they mean, right? So like when they know that something's cool or something exciting to them, like they'll let you know. And it's so pivotal when you're young to have anybody like tell you that you did something well or how exciting it was. And if they're older and you're like, oh, they're so cool, like I want to be like them, like it changes the course of your life, really. It gives you this confidence. And I think that women, especially in business, really get me excited, because there's so many studies that have been done. I don't say this to like bash men, but that when women are CEOs or they're in these higher roles, one, they hire more women. It's statistically proven that when men are in charge, they aren't always putting women in these higher roles, whether it's a subconscious thing or not. But women will move more women up. That only brings us all up. It makes us all more money. It allows us more freedom to do things. Women-owned businesses only get 2% of venture capital, and so much of that comes from women as it is. So if we don't have the money to then be able to help angel investor, we're not in these rooms because we didn't think that we could go to college and become an investor, then we don't get products made that we need. We stay behind in life. Women who are CEOs also, they contribute more to their communities. They donate more. There's so much that goes on. And I don't, again, mean to say that in a way of like men aren't doing enough. It's just like there's so much that I think women take on in life. Whether it's having, a family, or the way that we process decisions and the way that we function emotionally, that when we're put in these positions of power or these places of influence, even if you're the girl who was on the sidelines cheering that little girl on running, it just has such a profound impact. And there's so much that we can do, and we're really like just getting started. And I get really excited about it because I see these women starting these careers. I'm like, I will do anything I can to support them and help them, even if I don't think I'm like the best person to help you on this business. Anything you need, I will help you on, because if we don't do it for ourselves, nobody's going to right now. And I think it's just a fact of the world and what's going on. And we are, we're getting more educated, we're making more money, we're doing all the things, and we've had to fight our ass off to be able to do that. Like, I know a lot of people who are, my mom's age who didn't go to college still, who didn't do any of that. And to see women now who are running with these huge companies, or they went and got like their JD and their MBA at the same time, or they're sitting in these rooms making huge financial decisions. Like, it's amazing how much we've done. And I think that as a woman, you can understand that fight and that tenacity that's behind all the change that's been made recently. And so when I see something good happen for a woman, I'm just like, I'm so excited about it. And I just want there to be more of that. And I want to be able to have more of that, because the more we can be seen in those spaces, the more younger women will think it's possible for them, and it will just keep getting better.
Yeah, it helps for us to see people like us doing something, right? And I love that you called out like that perspective of like time, where it's like even just a couple generations ago, how far we've come. And so it's like keeping that perspective. I think it's cool. I like that you called out too, that it's like, we'll see things differently. There will be things that you're able to see that I can't see, needs that you can see that I just don't even perceive, right? And so by having you or other women in positions of leadership, there will be ways in which they are able to impact the business, our world, our families in ways that I just wouldn't even have the capacity. We go back to GWC that gets it once a capacity. I don't even have the capacity necessarily to even see some of those things. And so I think that's a really cool way of looking at that.
Yeah, I think like I don't know if you tell me if men like feel this way too, but like even like when I watch the Olympics and I watch like, the US women's gymnastics team, I think like all women get so psyched about them because they're so good, right? Like we're so dominant, they're so incredible, like, and you think about it and I forget, I'm like, dude, they're 18. Some of them are,
Wow,
this is their summer after high school, they haven't even gone to college, and they go out there and they just have like this poise and this strength and this grace, and they've been so determined their whole life. And when I see them, like I'm like in tears, because I'm just like, it's so incredible to see women do those things, and to like there's just like an emotional piece about it that I think is really hard to explain if you're not a woman. But like when I see a woman get promoted into like a big role, or like, I don't know, it's just it like opens up a part of you being like, hell yeah, like we did it. Like it was a win for all of us. It wasn't just a win for that girl. Like it's a win for the girls who are in 7th grade right now and are starting to think about their future. Like, even if they haven't seen that person directly, like it's just a win for all of us anytime something good happens. And I get so excited about it. And I think when women get together, like there's just like this power around it. Like there's just this strength of like, we're just capable of so much, and we're still,
totally.
we mentioned, like scratching the surface on it and seeing, where we can expand all the things we can do. And yeah, I just think it's so important as women to support each other, as like kind of as elementary as that sounds, because like I said, it's not happening other places. Like if we don't start funding each other's businesses as angel investors, if we don't get in those rooms, if we're not lawyers, if we're not in these places, if we're not supporting other women also who like don't look like me, like I do have like, a level of privilege as a white woman. So what am I doing to make womanhood better for everyone, anyone who's in business? Sure. That 2% of venture capital is like women as a whole, but that goes down significantly for women of color, and sure. The rates still they're graduating college, like it's better, but it's not great, or the ways that they're being promoted, or the companies that they're CEOs of. So it's not just about myself either, but making sure that all women are being supported in that way.
Yeah. It reminds me of, believe it or not, the Hebrew Bible. The word that's used when Eve was created is, he says, Ezer Kenegdo, and I might be butchering it, right? Like I'm not a Hebrew scholar or anything. But the word that's used, they oftentimes translated, they say it's like helper. And so sometimes people have thought that this sounds very like subservient. It's like, you're here to help me. And it's like, no. What's interesting is that same word is used for God. Meaning that they say that it's like this help that you cry out for. You're just like, I am not able. I need my Ezer. I need this help that is, and it's like he calls out, it's like God is his Ezer Kenegdo, right? It's like so I think it's really cool to think it's like we're starting to see maybe as a society that there is things that are powerful about both of these different feminine and masculine energies that I think allow us to see and perceive different needs within our world, and that allows us to heal different pieces within our world. And so I think it's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
We are at time. It has been absolutely amazing talking to you today. I've enjoyed learning from you. I've enjoyed learning about you. If people want to work with you or follow you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. If you want to follow me, I have been dead on LinkedIn for a little bit, but you guys should all go yell at me to post on there again. But I'm on LinkedIn. There's still a lot of content that I have posted on there that you can go back through and read. Go subscribe to Retail Roundtable. There's a lot coming in the fall that I'm really excited for. And again, seeing what the next iteration of it looks like beyond just a newsletter and the type of content we could put out there. So I would love if you went and followed. You don't have to have a Substack account. You can just put in your email, even though it's hosted by Substack, and it'll go right to your email. And then if you want to work with me, the type of consulting work that I'm typically doing right now is one-off strategy sessions. So if you have a specific issue that you want to talk about or work through related to retail strategy, marketing, or brand strategy, we can do that. And I also do like 3 to 5 day VIP days where I can come in as like your fractional CMO or COO, typically for startups, to help get you aligned as a founder and make sure that your team is prepared and you are able to support them in a sustainable way. And also make sure that there's that speed and consistency for your brand, because as I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this know, when you're early stage in your business, a lot of your first hires are interns or their contract work, and there's a lot of churn. So making sure that there's sustainability in your business, I can come in and get that sorted out. You can go to marketedit.co. And yeah, that's mainly it. But yeah, follow me on LinkedIn, DM me. I love talking to people on there. I'm super open to it. And all of my email and information is in there as well. So
perfect. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing your time, sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank
I've
you.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.